Hello students, this is SriRam Shastri. I once again welcome you back to my new video session, and this video is the continuation of evolution, the topic which we had started earlier. So in the last video we had discussed the part up to evidences of evolution. Now the next topic which we have to continue here is adaptive radiation and biological evolutions, right? So first thing, if you talk about the adaptive radiation, so what do you mean by the word adaptive radiation? Adaptive radiation is nothing but literally radiation or radiating of organisms from their single ancestor into different living forms of species. Or in simple words we can say a single ancestral species radiates literally into originating of different new species because of its adaptations and habitat adaptations, food habits, etc. So with respect to adaptations, when a species originates from its ancestor into a separate living organism, then we term this particular thing as adaptive radiation. Now adaptive radiation, if you talk about here, so here basically adaptive radiation can be discussed with examples. The two examples which we have to note with respect to our NCERT syllabus is Darwin's finches and marsupials of Australia. So if you talk about Darwin's finches, so there was a common ancestor for all finch. Finch is a small bird similar to sparrow family and passerine bird, because they were found on an island called as Galapagos. So on Galapagos Island there was a single ancestor of finch. Now when they entered into this new habitat, they had different things to feed upon, okay, and there was a competition for feeding. Single feeding habit was not sufficient for all of them. So slowly many of them started adapting to eat different things. Some of them started eating food grains, some of them started eating shoots of plants and grass, some of them started eating large fruits, some of them started eating hard shelled nuts, and some of them started eating insects also. So depending upon the different type of feeding habit, their beak modification changed generation over generations, and they got isolated from their ancestral species into different species of their own. Now this adaptive radiation of finches was observed by Charles Darwin, and Charles Darwin explained it as a process of adaptation with respect to feeding habit in Galapagos finches. These finches are also named as Darwin's finches because he was the person who studied about them. In the same way, marsupial mammals in Australia. Now most of the marsupial mammals are those mammals which have a pouch to keep their young ones. So they are somewhat primitive than true placental mammals. But they share much of the similarities with those of common true mammals or placental mammals and marsupials. So you can take marsupial shrew or common shrew, marsupial mole, common mole, marsupial wolf, or you can say Tasmanian wolf, common wolf, okay, flying squirrel or sugar glider. Now these are all animals, they are having a common features of their ancestors, but because the habitat in Australia was quite different. The mainland of Australia is separated, and the conditions in that particular habitat were totally different from the remaining part of the world. So these animals, they literally radiated into different variety of animals, and some of them remained primitive as marsupials, and some of them got advanced into true placental mammals. These two examples we can quote it here for adaptive radiation. So finches with respect to feeding habit, and marsupials and placental mammals with respect to geographical habitat. Now next part, if you talk about the biological evolution. Here we have to discuss about who were those people who started to discuss about evolution in detail. The first name what I have written here is Mr. Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck. So Lamarck's theory or Lamarckism, if you remember, it was being given by this person called Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck. Now, Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck is well known for his one of the postulate of his theory, that is use and disuse of organs and inheritance of acquired characters. These two things were very much famous in his theory, and no doubt it was not accepted as an evolutionary theory, but he gave an idea for thinking about the evolution. So according to him, you might remember the evergreen example of stretching of the neck of giraffe and extending its neck generation after generation resulted in a long-necked giraffe. So this is a postulate's example called inheritance of acquired character. Same way, there is also another postulate, that is a use and disuse of organs. The organs which are much biologically in use, they advance in their functions, and the organs which are not much useful in an organism's body, they lose their function and they become vestigial. Now it holds good for a few things, but it does not explain very clearly how the process of evolution might have started. For that, one more person with a new theory came up. His name was Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin is also considered as father of evolution. Along with him, similar theory was also given by Alfred Wallace. So Alfred Wallace and Charles Darwin, they explained the process of evolution as a process of natural selection and speciation. Now there are different postulates of Darwin's theory that we'll discuss in some other topic and some other video, And for today, we'll in the topic we will talk about natural selection process with an example. So what is natural selection? So most of the people think, natural selection is somebody called nature comes and selects somebody. No, it's not like that. Natural selection is an automatic process. In the nature, the organism which has the ability to sustain in different conditions, those organisms get naturally selected. There is nobody selecting anybody, but automatically the environment selects those organisms which are fit to survive in the changing environment. So with an example you can understand it very clearly. So for natural selection you can take example of the in England. Okay, so in England generally there were forests, okay, before industrialization. So before industries there were forests and the tree bark, okay. So the tree bark was covered with lichens. So now these lichens were white in color. Okay, these lichens were white in color, and there were two types of moth. Moths are insects. One was dark moth and another one was white moth. There are two phases of this story of natural selection. So in the beginning, when there was forest and when there was no pollution, no degradation of forest, no industrialization, the environment was pure green. The tree barks are dark, but they were covered with white colored lichens. Now white colored lichens were present on the tree bark, and two insects were living, that is two moths. One was white colored moth, another one was dark colored moth. I am explaining it in a very simplified way. The white moth, because of its color, was similar to the background of the tree bark, that is lichens. Lichens were also white and the moth was also white. So because of camouflage, their population was higher. So before industrialization, white moths had a greater population, and we can say they were being naturally selected in that particular condition. After a few years, when the industrialization started, then the pollution reduced the lichens on the trees. As we know, lichens are also called as pollution indicators because they cannot sustain in an environment where the pollution is higher. So pollution, as it increased into the environment, these white lichens, they disappeared from the tree barks. Now generally the color of the tree bark is darker. Okay, so dark colored moth had an advantage now in the second phase of the story. After industrialization, dark colored moth and the dark colored tree bark were in camouflage. So they were having a merging colors. So the predators in the beginning were only pointing dark moth on a white background, where when before industrialization lichens were white moths were white, but dark colored moth population was less. Why was it less? Because the white background was easily making these dark colored moths visible. But after the industrialization, the story reversed. Now the dark background supported dark moths, and because of their camouflage, dark moths population increased and white moths were visible to the predators and white moth population reduced. So in 2 lines you can remember the story. That is, before industrialization, white lichens, white moths were there. So population of white moths were high and dark moth was less. Clear? So this is before industrialization. After industrialization, white lichens disappeared. So white moths population decreased and dark moth population increased. So in the first part of the story, white moths were naturally selected. In the second part of the story, dark moths were naturally selected. So natural selection simultaneously works, which is not controlled by anybody but the environmental conditions. So according to changing environmental conditions, those organisms which are capable of adjusting to it, they sustain their life for a longer time, and those who cannot adjust, they either reduce and become extinct. This is what is natural selection process. So in the next video, we'll continue with the Charles Darwin's theory of evolution and its postulate. Along with that, we'll also discuss about the different topics of evolution with respect to bottleneck effect, the type of what you call as evolution, the steps of evolution we can discuss, and also we'll discuss about the Hardy-Weinberg's equation. For today, I would like to stop this video here itself. I hope you might have understood this. Thank you very much.